girl with a preppy vibe came to the spot with a friend of mine. She caught my eye. From the beginning, I was hooked, I can't tell a lie. Fresh, dressed, and fly, I respect her mind. Some dudes trying to impress, but looking goofy at the same time. He bugging, she looking, I'm going for mine. Confidently I approach with that eye-to-eye contact. She smiling while adjusting her hair, so I smile back. Pretty girl, what's your name? She said, is that true? Cause if it is, your name perfect for you. My name handsome. She said your name fits you too. See, we was clicking, and after that, time just flew. Then that time came to talk to her pops. He gave his blessing. And then that mind frame I had was honoring and protecting. I knew she was the one when we met. I found my future girl, and no other woman compares to my girl. Yeah, I knew it from the...
Hey y'all, welcome to the check-in. I'm still Fashionista, and we have a lot to unpack today, okay? Today, it's been such a beautiful day out here in the DC area. It's nice and warm, bright and pretty. And guess what? We're going to get into some things, okay, that are not so pretty, all right? So getting us started off, we're going to talk about Miss Kristi Noem and the fallout regarding her reassignment. We will get updates on Operation Epic Fury. We will also talk about Jesse Jackson's service as well as Jasmine Crockett's um her bid for the Democratic seat on the ticket for Texas. So yes, y'all, we're gonna go ahead and get going, and we're gonna first start off with Miss Gnome here. Because you know what? I said, you know what? I haven't really seen all of the videos that she did for this $220 million. Okay. Now, as you guys may know, she recently got reassigned. I want to say on this past Thursday, Trump announced that she was being reassigned to go work for Shield of the Americas. Okay. So I wanted to see, okay, she didn't lost this prestigious position with Department of Homeland Security. I want to see the video in full. So while I was looking, I ran into some other videos. So it seems like to me that Miss Noel has been doing videos throughout her career. So let's go ahead and get into this first one, which is when she ran for governor. Okay. And then you're going to see a theme here. Stay with me.
Get back on that horse and ride. It's what my father taught me since I was a little girl. His sweat built our ranch, and his love held our family together. But it all came crashing down when Dad died in a tragic accident. I lost my hero, and we nearly lost our livelihood. Through grit and God's grace, we kept going, and our ranch was saved. Over the last 2 years, South Dakotans faced dark days. But as Dad always said, we don't complain about things, we fix them. And we did. I held the reins and refused to let fear steal our freedom. And today, we've hit our stride. South Dakota has the best economy in the nation. We're #1 in tourism, and more families are choosing to make our state home than ever before. Here, freedom runs free. So saddle up. We're just getting started.
Governor Kristi Noem.
Okay, so that was a video that she did, I think, when she was running for governor. Okay, now I want to show you a video of when she was actually in the governor's seat. Okay, and you'll see that she has a history of being front and center in her videos. Okay, check this out.
South Dakota is the freest state in America. Now we're making it the safest by putting more police on our streets. So I'm on the road until we can hire more. We respect law enforcement because they protect our freedoms. We have no state income tax and the fastest growing incomes. Sir, are you aware you were driving 33 in a 65?
Governor Noem, it's me, Dusty Johnson. I'm a congressman.
Politicians.
South Dakota, freedom works here.
Okay, so you see how in this video she was dressed up as a state trooper, if you will. Okay, so what I want to say is I find it interesting that they didn't think that she was going to continue doing this type of thing when she became secretary for Department of Homeland Security. Like, it's clear to me that she enjoys and she uses these type of videos to help, I guess, push her initiatives for whatever her, you know, her view is. Now, this video is the one that she did for the Department of Homeland Security. That was part of the $220 million umbrella, the contract that she had got to get this done. 220 million for these videos. Okay, check it out.
Why do I love these wide open spaces? They remind me of why our forefathers came here, not just for its beauty, but for the freedom only America provides. I'm Kristi Noem. From the cowboys who tamed the West, to the titans who built our cities, to the dreamers who chased the impossible, America has always rewarded vision and grit. Our greatness calls people to us for a chance to prosper, to live how they choose, to become part of something special. Anyone who searches for freedom can always find a home here, but that freedom's a precious thing, and we defend it vigorously. You cross the border illegally, we'll find you. Break our laws, we'll punish you. Harm American citizens, there will be consequences. But if you come here the right way, your American dream can be as big as these endless skies. From President Trump and me, welcome home.
Kristi Noem.
Hold on. Can you guys hear me? Let me see something. Can you all hear me? Check. Can you hear me? Yeah, so one thing I'll say here is that, let me see if anybody's going to respond, if they hear me or not. Lord, can you guys hear me? Hopefully somebody will respond. Okay, so anyway, let me see something. Okay, so anyway, y'all, I'm gonna assume that you can hear me. So what I want to say here is that Miss Kristi Noem. Oh, okay. Hi. Hold on. Okay. Hey, at dark. Can you hear me? Hey, at the dark. Let's see if they'll reply back. Can you hear me? Okay. So what I want to say here is that, okay, you saw how she did these videos of her on the horseback riding, all of those things, right? And so I'm sure that worked well for her when she was doing all her governor stuff. She, wanted to portray this I'm one of you. Okay, thank you at the dark. Welcome to the live stream. So yes, I feel like when she was doing these videos, when she was trying to become governor, that made her more relatable to her constituents, right? And then when she was the governor, they liked her videos, and so she didn't have as many people watching what she was doing when she was in the state of South Dakota. Now you're now a secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and she was trying to take that same approach to that job that she had when she was in South Dakota at the working as the governor. So ma'am, what we have to understand is that, and y'all tell me in the chat what you guys think, but what it sounds like to me is that you know you can't, what got you here will not take you there. I repeat, what got you here will not take you there. So when you get into higher positions, you have to reassess whether the things that you used to do can still be done in this new role, if that makes sense. So, like I said, she was trying to use her same tactics, her being premiered in these videos, talking to the people, and that worked for South Dakota, but that's not going to work for the rest of the United States. Okay. And I refuse to believe at this stage that the administration wasn't aware that this was her thing. I don't believe that. The doc said, are you a lawyer or something? No, I'm not a lawyer. I'm an engineer. Yes. But yes, welcome to the check-in at the dark. Yes, yes, yes. So anywho, y'all, what I wanted to say was that, but next thing I want to show you guys is what did I have next here? I didn't got off my train of thought, but it's okay. So what I want to show you guys next is that Trump had something to say about that $220 million video. But let me get back to the dark hair. So no, I'm not a lawyer. I'm an engineer, but I'm just a regular person that is, watching the news, and I'm giving my opinions, and the people who support the channel are free to give their opinions as well in the chat. And at some point I may have where you guys can come on like video or something and talk to me and whatnot. But we're working our way to that. But yeah, that's what we do. We're here hanging out, chilling, talking about what's going on in the world. That's what it is about. So I don't know everything. People that come in the chat educate me on stuff sometimes. Um, you know, it's all about, community and engagement, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I'm about. So that's kind of the gist of what I do with the live stream. But feel free to ask a question or comment. That's perfectly okay. So next, I want to show you guys what Trump had to say about her $220 million videos. Check it out.
Out as Homeland Security Chief, ABC's Nicole D'Antonio has new details about that shakeup.
I'm Kristi Noem.
Sources say the breaking point for President Trump when it came to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was this $220 million taxpayer-funded ad campaign featuring Noem galloping near Mount Rushmore. Senator John Kennedy pressed Noem about those ads during a hearing this week.
The president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know
worked with
you were going to do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
Overnight, the president saying, quote, "I spent less money than that to become president. I didn't know about it." The New York Post also reporting Trump was not happy with Noem's answer this week when she was asked about her relationship with her advisor, Corey Lewandowski.
At any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
President Trump praised Noem's work securing the southern border, but she came under fire for claiming that Alex Preddy and Renee Good, two Americans killed by federal agents in Minneapolis, were domestic terrorists. Trump now nominating Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin to take over for Noem. He's a former mixed martial artist and business owner who's also a member of the Cherokee Nation. Mullin is already trying to bridge the gap, telling our Rachel Scott that Kristi Noem is his friend.
She was tasked to do a very difficult job, and I think she has performed the best she can do.
Nicole D'Antonio, ABC News, Washington.
Well, President Trump is technically not firing Noem. He's now appointing her special envoy for a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere involving a coalition of Latin American countries.
Okay, y'all. So what did they say here? They said that Trump said that he didn't even spend $220 million on his campaign to become president. Okay. So I thought that was interesting. So I'm pretty sure that she probably told Trump that she was, doing these videos, and maybe she did or did not release the price, but there is checks and balances when it comes to getting things on contract. So I find it interesting that no one didn't question this $220 million purchase through all the levels of bureaucracy that it goes through, right? And then on top of that, once somebody says, okay, well, this is 220 million, flag on the play, why didn't they just go ahead and cancel the contract? I mean, I don't know if it was like firm fixed price. I mean, I don't know what kind of contract it was, but in some instances, you can go ahead and cancel a contract. You may lose some money, but you might lose all your money, if that makes sense. And I can't see how that video that we just watched was 220 million. So I don't know how many videos were in the lineup. But let me say this to you guys. Most of like DOD and other agencies, they have like whole public affairs offices. So I don't understand why she couldn't have went to a sister agency and said, hey, we want to get this capability. Can your team, help us out? You know what I'm saying? Where you wouldn't have had to go contract out this work, where you have people who already work for the federal government, that whole job is to do stuff like that, if that makes sense. But just putting it out there. So we have the dark saying your face is very same on that person. Well, no, dear, it's not me. But continue to, engage in the chat. I appreciate it. But yes, y'all, that's what Trump had to say regarding the thing with Noem. And then they said that he didn't like how she responded really she didn't respond, in my opinion, when they asked her about her having an affair with Lewandowski, because she just says that's a ridiculous question. You know, are we really doing that? Ma'am, your answer should have been like, H, no, I would never do that. Like, she wasn't indignant enough with her response. She didn't really give one. So it kind of left it out that, okay, well, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But when you're sitting there in front of, Congress giving a testimony, you need to be very clear about what your answers are, in my opinion. Okay? So next up, we have Senator Kennedy. He's from Louisiana, and he gave a little insight as to what Trump told him directly regarding what happened with Ms. Kristi Noem. So let's get into that.
Meanwhile, back here at home, President Trump tomorrow is set to host the leaders of 12 nations in Florida to talk narco-terrorism and immigration. The administration dubbing it the Shield of America Summit. Now, that may sound familiar because yesterday, Trump announced outgoing DHS Secretary Kristi Noem will be a special envoy of the group after replacing her at Homeland Security with Senator Markwayne Mullin. And it was reportedly the DHS TV ad that was the key factor that led to her ousting. That staggering price tag was brought up in a combative Senate hearing this week.
And you're saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
The man behind that question joins me now. It's Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy. Senator, it's always great to see you. Thanks for being with us here today from Louisiana.
Thank you.
Reporting is that you talked to the White House before that questioning. I'm curious how that all came together.
Let me say this. One thing I can't respect about this Senator Kennedy, he went ahead and called up there to the White House and let them know I'm going to have some questions, okay? And he went and did what he had to do because he's for the people. And he says, and you will hear how he is cheap with the taxpayer money. So I can appreciate that. But you know what? He grilled her. He was very respectful, all the things, and he did his research. So let's get back to this real fast.
Talk to the secretary about the price tag of that ad.
Well, there's nothing extraordinary about what I did. There's nothing mysterious about what I did. I did my job as a senator.
Okay.
I'm very fond of the secretary. I congratulated her at the hearing, and I was sincere in my congratulations about executing the president's policy and securing the southern border. I have been concerned, though, as have other senators who have chosen not to speak out. I've been concerned about the fact that we have managerial problems at the department for a while that are distracting from the president's and our agenda. And I knew before the hearing I had a list of 8 issues I wanted to bring up with the secretary. I only got to 2. I don't want to overstate this business about calling the White House. I called the White House 2 days before, had a very brief conversation, and just said, look, folks, I just want you to know I'm going to ask some tough questions. I didn't tell them the questions. We didn't talk at length about it. They said, okay, do your job. No big deal. I did my job as a senator. And one of the things I asked the secretary about was the fact that she spent $250 million putting ads out across America, $250 million.
That's a lot.
In which she was prominently displayed. Yeah. They looked a great deal like political ads. And I found that breathtaking. And when I see what I perceive to be spending porn, I don't care who does it. I'm going to call it out.
That's right.
I'm pretty cheap when it comes to taxpayer money. I squeak when I walk. And that's what happened. It also came out, though the secretary denied it, that These were no-bid contracts, and then apparently some of them did not go to people whose names she got off ZipRecruiter. They went to political friends. And we talked about that. And I was stunned when she answered categorically that the president approved every single bit of it. Later that day, I got a call from President Trump. He was mad as a mama wasp. He said, "Kennedy, I hope you understand that I had nothing to do with this." And I said, "Well, I do believe you, Mr. President." He was not happy. It was clear to me after that conversation that the secretary's time at the department was limited. That to be blunt, she was dead as fried chicken. And we talked about a few names that he might consider. And then what happened. It's not personal. But President Trump was very irritated that the secretary had seemed to blame this on him.
Senator, interesting you note that you had concerns about managerial issues at DHS, and there were concerns you said were shared by several other senators who did not choose to speak out, and you did. Why didn't we hear from other senators?
Well, I can't speak for them.
Right.
I play outside the pocket. I will never completely fit in, which I consider to be one of my best qualities. I'm very frank.
Yeah.
Sometimes some people might think to a fault. I have the right to remain silent, not the ability. That's my job as a senator. And I'm not the only one that has these concerns. And the White House has had some concerns for a while. Well, it's not personal. I'm very fond of Kristi. But the problems, and many more, are going to be discussed at the department, were distracting from our agenda and the president's agenda. Immigration used to be our strongest issue. It's clearly not right now.
And there's plenty of objective metrics that it should be a strong issue for this administration when you consider self-deportation, the border crisis. It's been an absolute victory on so many fronts. So I understand the distraction from the public
and it was the money. It was the money. $250 million on television ads that really looked like political ads.
Let me ask you, Senator, really quickly about your friends across the aisle, both in the House and the Senate.
And then what happened. It's not personal.
Okay. Let me say this real fast. So he just said they look like political ads. And I showed you guys the ads that she did when she was running for governor and when she was, in the governor job at South Dakota. And those ads look quite the same. Same type of theme, her being prominently done, all of that. So I agree with with Senator Kennedy right here. He's spot on. And like he said, I have the right to be silent. Well, I have the right to remain silent, but not the ability. Okay, let's keep it going.
But President Trump was very irritated that the secretary had seemed to blame this on him.
Senator, interesting you note that you had concerns about managerial issues at DHS, and there were concerns you said were shared by several other senators who did not choose to speak out, and you did. Why didn't we hear from other senators?
Well, I can't speak for them. I play outside the pocket. I will never completely fit in, which I consider to be one of my best qualities. I'm very frank. Sometimes some people might think to a fault. I have the right to remain silent, not the ability. That's my job as a senator. And I'm not the only one that has these concerns. And the White House has had some concerns for a while. Well, it's not personal. I'm very fond of Kristi. But the problems, and many more, are going to be discussed at the department, were distracting from our agenda and the president's agenda. Immigration used to be our strongest issue. It's clearly not right now.
And there's plenty of objective metrics that it should be a strong issue for this administration when you consider self-deportation, the border crisis. It's been an absolute victory on so many fronts. So I understand the distraction from the public
it was the money. It was the money. $250 million on television ads that really looked like political ads.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Senator, really quickly about your friends across the aisle, both in the House and the Senate. And they are all suggesting that, this is not enough. The firing of Kristi Noem is not enough. It will not lead to the funding of DHS. They want a change in policy. And I know that I'm packaging two issues into one when I ask you this, but it's pretty shocking as well to see Democrats yesterday in the House, 53 of them, oppose a reaffirmation that Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Well, many of my Democratic friends are weak. We're in a bar fight. They want to quote Socrates. They in their heart, I think, know that President Trump is doing the right thing with respect to Iran. He had no choice. He didn't start a war. He's trying to end a war there. We've been at war with Iran for a while. Most of my Democratic friends are controlled by the Karen wing of their party. And the Karen wing of their party is the wing that gave us defund the police. We know how that vampire movie turned out. Now their mantra is defund ICE. And many, not all, but many of my Democratic friends are scared of the Karen wing. And that's what's driving this. That's why we can't put together a budget for Homeland Security. Our budget for Homeland Security has already been approved by the Democrats. All the Democrats signed off on it. And then all of a sudden they unsigned off on it. They said, we want to make ICE an issue. And what they ultimately want to do is defund ICE, because the Karen wing of the party wants to defund ICE. And that's not going to happen during your or my natural lifetime. Legal immigration is legal. The American people support it. But illegal immigration is illegal. These immigration statutes are not some second-tier laws where there are no consequences if you break them. They need to be enforced. How you enforce them matters. They should be enforced in accordance with equal protection and due process and the reasonable suspicion standards of Terry v. Ohio. And yes, people have the right to protest. They don't have the right to protest violently. This is all politics, Will.
Yes.
You know that.
Well, Senator, keep playing outside the pocket. It led Roger Staubach to the Hall of Fame. Thank you for being with us here today.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
All right, well, y'all heard what Kennedy had to say.
Kristi Noem.
Oh, hold on 1 second, y'all. Y'all heard what Kennedy had to say, honey. Kennedy was giving it to him, talking about the Democrats want to defund DHS. Well, they're still furloughed right now. DHS is. They've already missed their first paycheck. They've been furloughed for about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, y'all. So we heard from, Hakeem, not Hakeem, but from Senator Kennedy that he talked to President Trump, who explicitly told him that he did not support Kristi Noem with that $220 million ad campaign. I'm gonna tell y'all this. Now, I don't know if I really quite believe all of that, but I do believe that lady talked to Trump about these videos. And like I said, y'all saw how she did her stuff while she was as South Dakota governor. Okay, so she has a track record for doing these kind of videos, and that's why she was looking all crazy when she was answering. Well, yeah, I talked to the president. So what she didn't think was that Trump was going to leave her hanging per se. She was a scapegoat, in my opinion, a sitting duck. So I believe that she communicated with him about these videos, and she may or may not have told him the price. But he's getting a lot. She got a lot of flack during that testimony from not only the Democrat side, but the Republican side too. And with this whole thing going on with Operation Epic Fury, he could not, in good conscience, allow the people to think that he supported that with all this other stuff going on. So in my opinion, she was the scapegoat. Okay, he had to go ahead and get her up out the way because there was so much heat being directed toward DHS when it came to the ICE raids and everything up there in Minnesota. The two folks who ended up being unalived by ICE agents, they're saying the ICE agents lied under oath. There's criminal proceedings or legal proceedings, if you will, going on with some of the ICE agents and with Kristi Noem named in all this. There's a lot going on over there to where she was creating too much of a of a ruckus, if you will. Okay, so he had to go ahead and move her out the way and put her somewhere in the corner. That's what happened with that. Okay, now we're gonna get into what Hakeem Jeffries had to say regarding Kristi Noem being moved over to her new position. Let's get it.
Good riddance. She was a disaster, and House Democrats made something very clear several weeks ago. We said either Kristi Noem is fired or she's going to be impeached. Kristi Noem has been fired, consistent with what we have demanded on behalf of the American people. But let me also make clear,
she was reassigned.
A change in personnel is not sufficient. We need a change in policy. And that has to be bold, dramatic, transformational, and meaningful. And we've laid out 10 different demands standing on the side of the American people, including but not limited to judicial warrants, a ban on racial profiling, a prohibition on ICE targeting sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, polling sites, and houses of worship, a requirement that ICE agents are actually vetted through criminal background checks and actually trained, the implementation of a prohibition on the excessive use of force, which we've seen horrifically been unleashed on the American people, and of course, a requirement that ICE agents who break the law can be criminally investigated by state and local authorities. These are the type of policy changes that are going to be necessary to move us forward to ensure that ICE actually conducts itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country.
All right, he said good riddance. Y'all, why did Mr. Rob Davidson 993, welcome to the check-in? He said dollar store Obama. This guy is just plain creepy. Y'all be coming up with these different phrases, I tell you. But yeah, so, well, to be clear, she was not fired. I mean, yeah, she's no longer going to be the secretary for Department of Homeland Security. I want to say the new person gets sworn in on the 31st of the month. She was reassigned, okay? Trump was not going to sit there and literally, like, really fire her. And she's part of his party. He wasn't going to do that. He just went ahead and moved her somewhere else, out of the limelight, out of the heat. And she's going to be over here working with Pete Hegseth and I think Rubio. So we have Deborah Parson here. Welcome to the check-in. She says, what about the people endangering ICE agents? Are they still doing that? Are they still out there? But you know what? I guess you're right, because I did see yesterday where they were saying in Chicago that they were like signing some kind of a law to let people know in the community, that ICE agents were nearby. But honestly, I have not seen a lot of ICE agent activity in the last few weeks. But Miss Deborah, if you know anything, put in the chat. Let me know. Get me up to speed so I can know what to research. But I personally haven't seen it. She said yes. Okay. I did not know that. I promise you, I haven't seen anything really about the ICE agents in a minute. So we got Stephen Old Hiambo. I may have said that wrong, but welcome to the check-in. Glad you're here. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys, so President Trump said that he was going to announce more about Shoes of America, the new role, the new place where Kristi Noem is going to be working at as a special envoy. I have never heard of a special envoy before. Okay, so let's go ahead and play that.
And Trump tonight declaring a new war on drug cartels with a multi-nation military coalition he says will track down and destroy narco-terrorist networks operating across the Americas. The move coming after recent U.S. operations targeting suspected narco-terrorist networks in the Caribbean and South America. Trump promising this new coalition will, quote, eradicate the criminal cartels plaguing our region. It's all happening at the first Shield of the Americas summit in Miami. More than a dozen countries signing on to America's counter-cartel coalition. News Nation's Mills Hayes tracking the details for us tonight. Mills.
Natasha, despite the focus being on the war in Iran, President Trump made it clear that the U.S. military is at the ready to tackle cartels and drug traffickers in the Western Hemisphere. 12 Latin American leaders joined the president at the first Shield of America summit. And in total, 17 countries will make up America's counter-cartel coalition, with the presidents of El Salvador, Argentina, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, Honduras, Bolivia, and the president-elect of Chile at the summit Saturday. The president saying that the heart of the military partnership is a commitment to using lethal military force to destroy the cartels. And Trump said that the U.S. had amazing weaponry, and these Latin American countries just need to tell the U.S. where cartel operatives are.
But we're working with you to do whatever we have to do. We'll use missiles. If you want us to use a missile, they're extremely accurate. Boom, right into the living room. And that's the end of that cartel person.
Trump said that the only way to defeat these enemies is by unleashing the power of our militaries. On Friday, at the request of Ecuador, the U.S. military carried out an operation against a suspected drug smuggling facility inside the country there. And the president also said that the epicenter of cartel violence in the Western Hemisphere is Mexico. But Mexican leadership was not there, and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has repeatedly rejected proposals to allow U.S. troops in the country to fight the cartels. Just 2 months ago, the U.S. captured Venezuelan President Maduro to face drug trafficking charges in the U.S. Trump formally recognizing the Venezuelan government this week praised interim President Delcy Rodriguez for working with them and saying the U.S. has been able to take out tremendous amounts of oil. Cuba no longer getting oil from Venezuela, now on notice, with the president saying that great change will soon be coming to Cuba, and added the country is in its last moments of life as is. But Trump says they're negotiating with the Cubans and believes a deal will be made easily. And Kristi Noem making her debut as the new special envoy to the Shield of Americas after the president nominated Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin to replace her as the Secretary of Homeland Security after bipartisan backlash.
Our objectives are going to be to destroy the cartels, to go after these narco-terrorists that are destroying our people, killing our children and our grandchildren. We're also going to keep our adversaries at bay.
Noem told Latin American leaders now that America's borders are secure, the U.S. wants to focus on helping our neighbors with their borders and challenges. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Noem will be involved with the Latin American leaders on a personal level to ensure that the work talked about will continue. Natasha.
He's with that live report tonight. Thank you.
Interesting. So that's what the Shield of the Americas is about. It's all about, I guess, trying to fight the cartels. And Mexico didn't show up to the summit. So interesting. But yeah, so she's gonna be working with that, y'all, working with the Shield of Americas. That'll be her new job. So we have Eli not giving 9236. He said, oh my gosh, he thinks the cartels can't hit back. Then we have Mr. Lou saying, hello, welcome to the check-in. Welcome to check-in, Mr. Eli and to Mr. Lou. Then we have Alvin Davis here saying, get out of the way, coward. Oh, okay. Well, Alvin, welcome to the live stream. Okay. Do y'all know each other or something? Okay. So we're gonna switch gears, y'all, and we're gonna get into our Operation Epic Fury segment here. So as you guys know, we've been in what I call war for maybe, it's been about what, 8 days, 9 days now? And if you recall, they were saying that a school, an all-girls school was hit. And I want to say 165 young girls and 14 teachers were unalived. And so Iran said that America hit the school. And then, this weekend when President Trump and Hegseth, were leaving the dignified transfer ceremony of the fallen American soldiers at 6, they were asked on the plane about it. And so Trump said that basically, we don't we don't try, we don't, no, the intent of what he was saying is that we don't go after civilians, and, Hegseth said that we're doing an investigation into any of that, right? So he didn't say yes or no, but he did say we're just trying to figure out what went on. So apparently there has been some new footage to come out where it kind of shows that the U.S. more than likely hit that school. Now, what I did learn is that the school used to be a part of I'm gonna call it like a base, if you will. It used to be a part of a base type of setup. But the school, probably like in 2019, 2020 timeframe, the building was repurposed to a school, and they built a wall between like the school and then like the active military area for Iran. And so perhaps they may have had outdated intel as far as like, okay, well, all this is this military type setup, when really now it's like this is military setup, but this over here is not, and I guess the imagery that they have, you couldn't see like, okay, you have this building is not blue with a mural on it, you couldn't see all that, right? Not that I'm making any kind of excuse, I'm just telling you guys what I found out this afternoon. But yeah, so we're gonna get into their accounting of this. So we have, okay, Eli is saying Alvin, the keyboard warriors, never made him laugh out loud. Got you. Sometimes I know people be like going to different platforms and they may, know each other, but I understand you don't know this man. Noted. Eli says they did. Somebody made that call. Lou says everyone should watch Taking Chance. It's a movie about a dignified transfer starring Kevin Bacon. I have never heard of that. Okay, but let's get into this update that just came out today regarding whether or not the U.S. hit that school, and it's looking like they did. Let's get into it.
Get back on that horse and ride. It's what my father taught me since I was a little girl.
Oh yeah, I'm
His sweat-
sorry. I need to change. I need to switch the video. That's my bad. Here
A
we
new
go.
video appears to show a U.S. airstrike on an Iranian military base right next to the elementary school where Iranian state media says more than 160 girls were killed. CNN's Isabel Young looks at the video and the evidence that suggests the U.S. may be responsible for that strike on the school.
This is the moment a missile slammed into an Iranian base in Minab, a city in southern Iran, just over a week ago. In this freeze frame, you can see it clearly. Weapons experts tell CNN the wings and tail are consistent with a Tomahawk missile. This new video is the clearest evidence yet that suggests it was the United States that struck an elementary school next to that Revolutionary Guards base, killing scores of students. The US has been firing those Tomahawk missiles at Iran from ships and submarines for more than a week now. Israel doesn't use them, experts tell us.
Mr. President, did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 170?
No, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Iran also doesn't use Tomahawk missiles.
So that's what I was telling y'all. They asked them on the plane, leaving that dignified transfer, and that's when Trump said, "Oh no, I believe it was Iran," and Hegseth said, "Oh, we're investigating." But what they were saying when I tried to stop is that they're saying it was a Tomahawk missile that hit that building. So what do we have here? We have Eli saying the only thing American government is liberating is the children of their lives. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, because they're not here with us no more. I see what you're saying with that.
Missiles. And using satellite images,
That's
it's
sad.
clear the school was struck nearly simultaneously with strikes on an adjacent Revolutionary Guards base. That suggests precision targeting. CNN geolocated this video. We think this missile struck the military base, not the school. You can see that other buildings in the direction of the school had just been struck when this was filmed. CNN is still trying to gather visual evidence from the ground, and until we see actual remnants from the munitions itself, it's impossible to be definitive. But this is the clearest evidence to date. US Central Command says they're still investigating. Isabel Young, CNN, London.
In response to CNN's findings, a U.S. military spokesperson said it would be inappropriate to comment given the incident is still under investigation.
For more on this, let's bring in U.S. Army retired Lieutenant General Mark Schwartz. He also serves as a CNN military analyst. Thank you so much, General, for joining us. Listen, we know that accidents, tragedies happen in war. No one is accusing the United States, at least no serious person, if the United States was behind the strike, of doing this deliberately or intentionally. But of course, that is how Iran is spinning it right now, despite the fact that they themselves have thousands of lives in terms of blood on their hands. But from what you're seeing from Pete Hegseth and how the United States is responding to this thus far, does that bring you or give you any cause for concern? What should be the appropriate response aside from we're conducting investigation?
Well, I think that what is happening now, Central Command is certainly doing, an intensive investigation. I've personally been involved with these of potential civilian casualty, occurring or allegations, and gone through that entire investigative process. It does take some time, and as it was reported right before I came on, we don't have the benefit of actually doing on-the-ground battle damage assessment to look at the shrapnel, and actually assess the type of munition. But, based on what has been put out thus far, and you see the precision fire that came into all those structures around the girls' school, it is consistent with the types of targeting and weaponeering that we do and have done in the past, we being the United States. So I do think it's important, to allow for the investigation process to take place, and as important, the transparency once the investigation is concluded is extremely important. I think the quick response by the president after the dignified transfer ceremony on Air Force One the other day with the secretary in the background, I think the point was being made, hey, we don't deliberately target civilians, and we don't. Certainly it's not part of our rules of engagement in any circumstance. But I do think it's quick to say that it wasn't us. We owe that due diligence that we typically do in the United States military. So I think it's good that we're still looking at this and keeping this, at the forefront, given everything else that's been going on over the course of the last week and I guess about 8 days now since the operations commenced.
So Mark, explain to us, how does a mistake like this, and this is quite a grave mistake, how does a mistake like this actually happen?
Well, part of it is the intelligence that you have in terms of before a target is struck, typically, especially a deliberate target, they have what's called a pattern of life. So you look at the activity that's going on. If you have the ability to, observe it either through satellite still imagery or, full motion video, almost near real time video. So potentially we didn't have that ability, whoever struck this school. But, historically, and certainly in my experience, you have that as you're trying to build up, the level of confidence that the targets that you are striking are in fact viable military targets. But sometimes you don't have perfect intelligence and accidents happen. I personally have approved strikes when I was in service that resulted in the loss of civilian life. And it's tragic, obviously, but the transparency of what occurred and how it occurred and the lessons learned so that ideally you can reduce, you're never going to eliminate, but reduce the likelihood that it could happen again are extremely important.
Let's talk about this with former Defense Secretary and CIA Director under President Obama, Leon Panetta. So thank you so much for being with us, because this is just a heartbreaking story where it appears the U.S. hit this base right next to the school. And you hear the president there blaming Iran. Notably, Hegseth did not confirm that. But the White House press secretary last week cautioned reporters against believing Iranian propaganda. How are you seeing this?
Well,
Hold on. before I let this man talk, let me tell you how I'm seeing it. I think I'm agreeing. I'm gonna agree with Miss Deborah here. I think that was intentional. That they gave that all girls school, that building, knowing that it was right next to that base, and knowing that the possibility of, hey, if anything happens to the base, there could be impacts to the school. And I think that was intentional, because guess what's happening right now? They hit the base, and then the girls' school got hit as well in some kind of way. I don't know, but now the optics are more about that girls' school being hit, which is tragic, which is very tragic. Don't get me wrong, but I think that was part of the design when the Iranian people, or whoever is in power, decided to give that building right next to that base to that all girls school. That was intentional, in my opinion. So I'm with Miss Deborah Parson on that. We got Mr. Eli here saying, as a veteran, I always tell soldiers in service that they need to weigh what they're doing against the human cost. And most time they only consider losses to their side. I believe that. I do. Now, this next man was he was the defense secretary, I think it was, to Obama. It'll be on the screen, and he has some interesting perspective. Let's get into that.
Is that when we're engaging and dropping a lot of bombs and air attacks, it's critical that there be accurate and reliable intelligence as to the targets. It appears that there was a serious mistake here. Right. And that instead of hitting a military base, they hit a nearby girls' school. And the problem with that is that, if in fact we're trying to get the Iranian people to be able to rise up and to be able to get a new government, this doesn't help when you hit a girls' school and kill a number of innocent people. Collateral damage is what ultimately hurt our efforts in Afghanistan, because that kind of collateral damage gave impetus to the Taliban to come back. And the danger here is, by hitting these kinds of targets, what you're doing is helping the regime stay in place.
Yeah, speaking of Afghanistan, I was thinking back to that 2015 U.S. attack on the Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz. And the story did change initially coming out of the U.S. government. It sort of evolved over the course of a few days before we got a better sense of what was going on. But President Obama ended up personally apologizing a few days later for that strike. Families were paid a compensation. There was an investigation. It was not an independent one, which is what the nonprofit desired. There were military careers that were ended over it, though no one faced a court-martial. And there were a lot of folks who said there should have been more. But there were those steps. And I wonder why you think it's important that an administration take responsibility from the top to the bottom for something like this.
Well, I've often said, truth is the first casualty of war. And that seems to be the case here. It's much better, I believe, when you see what the truth is, for the President of the United States to speak the truth. Because the last thing you need right now in the middle of a war is a president that loses his credibility.
That's right.
And speaking to the American people and speaking to the world. And so I believe that it would be far better, because you're dealing with a number of issues here. You're dealing with a number of challenges. If you just simply lie about some mistakes that are being made, that will come back to undermine your leadership. And the president needs to learn the lessons of war, and obviously he's not.
So yeah, I agree. It's like you're gonna have to, if you made a mistake, then you got to own up to it. because trying to hide it or minimize it, it's not gonna work. Especially not about something as catastrophic as a school being hit with 165 girls unalive and 14 teachers. That's a lot. Okay. So Eli says, yeah, that's a good assessment. You're creating more enemies than you've eliminated, to put it coldly. Got you. And then we have at 46 MD here. Welcome to the live stream. These liberal hacks on CNN hate everything Trump does, even stopping Iran from attaining nuclear weapons. They hate that too. Okay. He got the Bucky sign, one of my favorite places, Bucky's. All right. We got Eli saying for a long time, the consensus of the security community is that Iran regime change needs to come from within, not without. Gotcha. Yeah, so my next video is going to talk about the regime. So as you guys probably know, they ended up putting Jimenez's son as the supreme leader in the organization. So that did take place, and my understanding is that not only did his father pass away, but his wife also passed away in that attack on day one. Okay, so homeboy is coming. He has a personal interest in what's going on now. The new supreme. What do we have? We have Miss Deborah saying, if you go back in history, after each war, we go into the war-torn countries. We rebuild these countries. We did it to Desert Storm, etc. Yeah, that's a lot of money, ain't it? When you do all these country rebuildings and whatnot. Yeah, you spend money going to war, then you have to go and help build the country back up. That's a lot of money. So I agree, but let's go ahead and hear about this new supreme leader.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Nazi Javid. We begin with the latest news from the Middle East. Today, Iran named a new supreme leader. The Assembly of Experts have picked Mojtaba Khamenei, the second son of the late supreme leader Ali Khamenei, to lead Iran. President Donald Trump said last week that it would be unacceptable to him if Khamenei's son was elevated to supreme leader. After announcing its decision, Iran's Assembly of Experts called on citizens to support the country's new leadership. Mojtaba Khamenei is the third leader of the Islamic Republic since the 1979 revolution. And with Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son named Iran's next supreme leader, hardliners are expected to remain in control, raising new questions about whether the U.S. could be pulled deeper into the conflict. I spoke with a Sacramento state expert about what this could mean for Iran, the region, and here at home.
Khamenei's name represents repression, undermining of basic rights. He has been at the helm at almost every wave of protest and repression.
Iran has named Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as the country's next supreme leader.
For the most part, we can interpret this as a signal of defiance by the Islamic Republic, not only toward the West, because Donald Trump has said that this was absolutely the last person he wanted to have in this leadership position. It strikes a very defiant and non-conciliatory tone.
Razavi says for many Iranians, the decision is seen as a continuity with the current system.
He was his father's right-hand man. Iranians are not happy about the decision because it essentially signals to them that the Islamic Republic is digging its heels in. If Mojtaba Khamenei survives this war, I think he's going to probably face legitimacy challenges.
But reactions inside Iran are not all the same.
The people who are celebrating this are celebrating it because they believe that the continuity of leadership is needed to help the Islamic Republic survive.
Earlier in the day, Iranian Americans in Citrus Heights gathered at a rally celebrating for a different reason, hopeful for a free future for their homeland.
The Islamic Republic of Iran have killed thousands of Iranians in the last 2 months. So we are here to support U.S. military intervention.
Some at the rally say they support international pressure after decades under the same government.
If you draw the line between Iranian people and Iranian government, it's easy to see
people are celebrating here. No one celebrates war and getting bombed.
We are the voice of the voiceless, and then we are relaying the voice of the people from inside because they cut the internet. Iran is in a dark.
At the rally, one Iranian American called for unity, directing his message to California's U.S. senators.
It has nothing to do with Republican or Democrats. It has to do with the right things in the world. It has to do with getting rid of terrorism. It has to do with human rights.
Razavi says some Iranians see outside pressure as a last resort after years of protests and attempts at change.
From their perspective, it is the last possible action that could be taken. From their perspective, they have tried everything. They've tried protesting, they've tried voting, they've tried gathering signatures for petitions, they've tried organizing civil society, and the Islamic Republic has foreclosed that kind of civil society robustness at every single turn.
Meanwhile, a seventh U.S. service member has been killed in action, according to the Pentagon. The U.S. and Israel are launching a new wave of attacks against Iran, now targeting the country's infrastructure. Israel says it has hit multiple oil refineries. Massive plumes of smoke seen above the fuel depot in Tehran. Elsewhere in the city, video posted on social media showing a massive fireball erupting as someone is heard saying the fuel is in the streets, burning people's shops and houses as another major refinery was hit. Iran retaliating against these attacks, apologizing to its neighbors first, promising to stop any further fighting unless Iran was attacked first. But then, hours after that apology, strikes rained down in several Gulf countries. Drones and missiles hitting this high-rise in Kuwait. The video showing the moment an Iranian drone struck the airport in Dubai, and now Saudi Arabia with its first casualties, saying a military projectile fell on a residential site. And we want to show you more images of that attack on Iran's oil infrastructure. Iran's largest fuel storage facility, the Shahran oil deposit in northeast Tehran, was ablaze for hours. Thick plumes of smoke drifted from the compound into central Tehran, triggering the rare weather phenomenon of black rain, which is rain saturated with oil.
Wow. Wow. I am speechless. They're attacking the oil refineries. Wow. Because I'm sure you guys have seen that the price of oil has went up to over $100. Yeah, it hadn't been that high in a long time. And then I was informed that the Strait of Hormuz is being blocked by Iran, so can't get the tankers through. So we're gonna see some increases in gas and all kind of things in the coming days. Because I saw where it's already went up as of the day. But you know what? Let me tell you what Trump said. Trump said, let me tell y'all this. He said short-term pain, long-term gain. Okay? Short-term pain, long-term gain. That's what he said. Okay, so what we saying here in the chat. So yeah, Time for Bass says, and shout out to him or her. Mahaba Khamenei was severely injured. One of his legs has been amputated, and he may not even be consciously aware that he is the supreme leader. Wow. My. Then we have Eli saying used by imperialists post World War II. You're probably talking about the neo-colonialism. Lou says Eye in the Sky is a drone movie about making the collateral damage decision. Eli says that's because the strait is closed. It's creating a short and allowing the Russians to sell at a premium. Okay. Undoing the sanctions imposed on their monocultured economy. Got you. Okay. Now let me tell you guys, Trump had something to say. Now you know Trump wanted to be involved in who they put as the next supreme leader. And I want to say somebody said that I don't know if they were replying to him wanting to help, pick the next leader for Iran, or if he was talking about that full ceasefire. But they said basically in America's dreams, will they be doing that? Boy, I tell you, but let's go ahead and see what Trump talking about with this warning he gave regarding the new supreme leader.
So right now, growing questions about the future of Iran as the terror regime names the Ayatollah's son as its new supreme leader. He's a hardline cleric, widely considered more radical than his dad.
President Trump warning, quote, he's going to have to get approval from us. If he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long.
Former ambassador at large and
Let me say this. So based off what Time for Bass has reported regarding the new supreme leader, the Ayatollah son, Trump has made good on his word already. Let's keep going.
terrorism coordinator Nathan Sales served in the State Department in President Trump's first term, and he joins us now. Nathan, thanks so much for joining the program. So we had a lot of experts on, and they've been across, other networks as well. And many of the people following this didn't think that they were going to choose the son. They got it wrong. Why do you think?
Well, I think the Iranian regime is doubling down on its failed strategy of trying to defy and wage war on the United States and the West. This is an establishment choice. He may not have been the consensus frontrunner, but picking the son of the old leader signals continuity. And it's very much a meet the new boss, same as the old boss type situation. One other thing to emphasize about this new guy, he has very strong ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the sort of shock troops of the Iranian regime and its exporter of revolutionary ideology around the region. Of course, that's just formalizing what has always been the case. The IRGC has long been the power behind the throne when it comes to the Iranian regime. So this just sort of brings that role out of the shadows and into the spotlight.
I know you've talked about the three goals, which is the nuclear weapons, make sure they don't have nuclear weapons, the ballistic missile threat, and the terror proxies. This is what the New York Times is saying about about Iran being able to retrieve their uranium. They say American intelligence agencies have determined that Iran or potentially another group could retrieve Iran's primary store of highly enriched uranium, even though it was entombed under the country's nuclear site at Isfahan. By U.S. strikes last year. Officials familiar with the intelligence said that Iran can now get to the uranium through a very narrow access point. What's your reaction to that? We don't want them to have access to this.
Well, it sounds like the military just added another target to the list. The Iranians are going to keep trying at this. The reason why this war started is because of their determination to preserve a pathway to a bomb. So it shouldn't surprise us at all that they're going to do what they can to recover access to their highly enriched uranium. But we have a play here as well, and that is the same play that we made last June when we targeted the nuclear weapons program. We can drop a couple of bombs on that target, I imagine, and make it pretty difficult to excavate that uranium.
Well, that would certainly help. So Ali Larijani says, we're going to relentlessly avenge the blood of our leader and our people, meaning the Ayatollah. Trump must pay and will pay. Trump came back and says, I have no idea who this guy is, who they're talking about. What is your take on the bravado we're still getting from them, even though they've been devastated? We're moving past Tehran now into the heartland, targeting the IRGC in all 31 provinces.
Well, I think part of this is for a domestic audience. I think the regime is afraid for its life, and it's trying to signal to Iranian citizens that they're still in charge and they're still in control. I don't think the Iranian people believe it. You know, we saw hundreds of thousands of people out in the street last January, in response to which tens of thousands were murdered by regime goons. So I think this is partly a play for the regime to convince a very doubtful Iranian public that they're still calling the shots.
Wow. Nathan Sales, thanks so much.
Wow. Okay. So you guys heard how Trump said that basically, and we were talking about it in the chat here, that he wants to pick the next supreme leader, and that if it's someone he don't like, they ain't gonna last long. And they're saying that the son was more radical than the dad. But I guess we'll just see what happens next. You know, if the son is you know, in a bad way, as Mr. Time for Bass has told us here, Then they're gonna be on to the next supreme leader, right? Okay, so next up, what do we have here? So we have discussion about, they're saying that Russia is helping Iran. Like they're providing Iran with like intelligence information. So we're gonna get into that a little bit because I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm surprised. If Russia is an ally of Iran, then you would expect the allies to support when you're at war, essentially. So that's how the game of war goes, right?
And a new report says Russia may be providing intel to Iran to hit U.S. bases. Iowa Congressman Zach Nunn is an Air Force veteran.
But let me say, they say U.S. bases, okay? Now, they did say that, the prime minister for Iran was like, well, there's bases that they have here, United States assets that's here in the Middle East, um, you know, that they can attack, that has soldiers. And then, they were just saying that basically, if anything comes our way from an American base on your soil, we are going to respond, is what he pretty much said. Okay. Um, I don't, like I told y'all before, when they said that, oh, they don't have the ability to make it to US soil, I don't believe that. I just don't. We got this big ocean. We do. But the days of us just going over there and tearing up their stuff, I don't think that's going to be a thing much longer. They're going to try to, do some damage to the U.S. You know what I'm saying? That's what I personally believe. I have no intel on that. So I think they're saying all the right things because you cannot let the left hand know what the right hand doing. They're saying the right things like, oh, we don't have access to things that can make it to the U.S. But as we saw with 9/11, they have these martyrs. Like I think Bull Monkey had said on last Thursday. So you know what I'm saying? That is something. Deborah says, remember the 9/11 and over 3,000 of our people died. Iran went and funded this. There you go. Me and Deborah be right here on it. Yes. Thank you, Miss Deborah. Yes. But let's go back. We got at 46 MD saying thanks for streaming. You're welcome. Thank you for being here and supporting the channel. And yes, for those who are here supporting the channel, please like the video, the live stream. Help push me into the algorithm. Feel free to subscribe. It's free. Help a sister out. Let's get back to this.
Who served our country for almost 2 decades as an airborne intelligence officer. He flew recon missions off the coast of Russia and China and previously served as director of cybersecurity at the White House's National Security Council, and he joins us now. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us on this very important topic. So, with these reports that Russia is helping Iran with locations of U.S. Locations of U.S. People and equipment. How significant is that?
Well, Charlie, as a combat aviator who has flown recon missions off the coast of both Russia and Iran, we know that this access between Tehran and Moscow is real. And working counterintelligence operations, we can see how dangerous these type of information sharing arrangements become when Iran has the capability to strike. They are GPS-related drones, as was just made evident in the killing of 6 folks from my district. I'm going to be at their funeral later today. The distinguished remains returned to Dover Airfield. But we also know this, that when Russia engages, they have overhead capability to be able to provide direct targeting information, whether that's a U.S. ship in the Persian Gulf, whether it's U.S. forces on the ground in allied areas like Al Udeid Air Base, where I flew operations out of. And this type of information sharing results in lethal kinetic action by the Iranians, whether it's the Iranian drones, whether it's the IRGC, or whether it's through the terrorism groups that Iran has sponsored to be able to take direct action against U.S. forces in the region. It's one of the reasons that I'm leading both the maximum pressure campaign sanctions against Iran, something that had overwhelming support this summer, as well as the Peace Act, which is a Peace Through Strength initiative to empower President Trump to hold Russia accountable for exactly these kind of threats against U.S. forces and stop Russia from sharing overhead intelligence that can put U.S. forces in harm's way.
So one of the things that's kind of interesting is Russia has sort of played two sides of this. They've declined to get directly involved, or at least openly involved, with Iran, even though Iran has done everything to try to support Russia over the past couple of years. What is the game that Russia is playing right now? And are they stronger because of this, what we're doing in Iran right now, or are they weaker?
I believe that they're weaker. And every moment that they continue to engage with the failing Iranian regime, as U.S. forces have already depleted their ability to take strikes against the U.S. by nearly 90%, going after those launchers, those capabilities that Iran has domestically to produce drones, Russia finds themselves supporting a failing ally at this point. And Russia's engagement here not only bleeds out what Russia has, but it also puts them in the crosshairs of the United States if they continue to move in this direction. Look, here's the reality. Iran has been providing drones for Russia in their wars, in Eastern Europe for years now. And the very fact that they believe handing off intelligence is a way to be able to acquire more of these resources, unfortunately, tethers them directly to a conflict that could bring the United States closer to not only moving, forward sanctions that I'm leading, but also is going to put our forces on edge as to how the Russians are engaging and could potentially widen the scale of event. We don't want to see that happen. Right. I'd like to see the Russians step back from this. And Charlie, I want to really highlight here that there's a toll that comes from this. Earlier this week, we lost 6 great Americans in Kuwait. They were all based out of Fort Des Moines in my district. 2 of those incredible soldiers are Iowa's own. Sergeant Declan Cody was a young man. He was 20 years old. He went to the same college I went to. He was an Eagle Scout. He was a kid who was building furniture for homeless shelters, but he was an IT specialist. He saw firsthand the importance that, not only defending the nation meant, but he had a very bright future ahead of him on what he was going to be able to do in this area. The other one from my area, Waukee, is a major. His name is Jeffrey O'Brien. He worked at Pro Circular in Iowa as a specialist here working in high tech. These are the types of young men who sacrificed for our country. I've got 9 more in a hospital in Germany. Their families are worried about them. This type of precision targeting needs to be stopped because this is the kind of stuff that can kill Americans out in the field very directly. The Iranians don't have capabilities to be able to do this alone. I want to make sure that there's no enemy who's aiding and abetting the killing of Americans as we have so many brave young men and women deployed overseas right now.
What an
Okay, y'all. So this video, I didn't give you guys a little preface. This video is about the people, giving you kind of an insight into the folks that lost their lives on day one, of the attack. And they all, for the most part, they all came from Iowa, from this one particular unit. So 6 of the the 6 that were unalived first, they arrived this past weekend. And then there was another one that was pronounced unalive today, or maybe early this morning. They succumbed to some injuries. So it's a total of 7 Americans that have, they've been unalived at this time. And yeah, and I want to say the majority of them came from Iowa. But yeah, one thing they did say, as far as like Russia, is like they really don't want Iran to have their allies like kind of step in and help them, because this war is gonna be a little bit longer than what he thought of 5 weeks. He keeps, he may be toting about Venezuela. They didn't have the resources that I'm seeing that Iran has. This is going to be a different type of event right here. So there you have it. Let's keep hearing about these great Americans that paid the ultimate price, gave the ultimate sacrifice. Because it's nice when you have people make them be human, where you get to see and learn about them as people, and not just the 6 that lost their lives with that strike. Let's get into it.
Ceremony that you'll be going to. Have you ever been to one of these ceremonies before?
Well, Charlie, this is very tragic. This will be the 2nd time I'm going to it in just as many months. We lost 2 great Iowans in December due to a terrorist strike, also in CENTCOM. These were 2 staff sergeants. Nate and Howard, I had their families come join me at the State of the Union. Iowa has suffered a disproportionate catastrophic loss here at home, with 4 of our own sons dying in the Middle East largely as a direct result of the type of extremism that has crippled the Middle East for 47 years under the Iranian regime and the extremism that has taken lives of Americans. But I know this much is true. For those families who will be joining at Dover Airfield in the dignified remain receival, they put themselves before country. Like myself, only 1% of Americans puts that uniform on, runs into the fight so that all of us here in the United States can be safe. You know, not only God bless them and God bless our troops still serving, but I want to give a particular heartfelt appreciation for the families who have had to endure this sacrifice so that their sons, their husbands, this community knows that they're safer under the protection that these incredible warriors have provided for all of us.
Well, each of those warriors has the gratitude of the entire country, and as does the state of Iowa. And we thank you, Congressman, for joining us this morning and talking about all this.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Okay, so the next video we have here is the actual, well, it's not the whole video. It's not the whole ceremony of the dignified transfer, but President Trump, Hegseth, their wives, they all went to Dover, Delaware. The mortuary for all of the services is at Dover Air Force Base in Dover, Delaware. So they had all the bodies flown there. And they do a little bit of a ceremony, if you will, when they're taking them off the plane and all of that stuff, in preparation to get them to the family. So yeah, that is what we're gonna get. We're gonna see a little bit of that. But what are we saying here in the chat? And so no, Eli, I did not know that Hegseth wrote a book. I didn't know that. Deborah said this war has been going on for close on 35 or more years when Iran backed several bombings of federal buildings. Hopefully, President Donald Trump is stopping it once and for all. That's the goal. Eli says, from your own opinion, then come back and share so that we can all benefit from your perspective. Eli, what you talking about? I don't know what Eli talking about. He addressing something. But okay. Was it my question I asked? What did I ask y'all in the chat? I can't see it. Let's get into the video while I figure this out.
Investigation is still underway in Oslo, Norway tonight after a blast at the U.S. embassy there. According to police, an explosion damaged the building's entrance in the early hours of the morning. Unfortunately, no one was hurt. Still unknown, though, whether this incident is connected to the U.S. military operations underway in Iran. News Nation's Mills Hayes tracking this for us tonight. Mills, what do investigators know so far?
Natasha, police in Norway suggested that this explosion at the U.S. Embassy in Oslo could be connected to the ongoing U.S.-Israeli war with Iran, and it's still under investigation. But police say this may have been an act of terrorism, and they believe it was a targeted attack. The explosion happened around 1 a.m. there. Eyewitnesses say that they heard a loud bang. They could see smoke rising from the area. Neighbors told NRK TV they were woken up by their homes shaking. Oslo police said that the explosion was caused by some sort of incendiary device, and a U.S. official told the AP it was inside a backpack before it detonated. There was minor damages to the public entrance of the embassy, and there were thankfully no injuries.
We did not really know what it was, but we figured like after the U.S. Iran situation, it was kind of like some sort of protest, because before there was protesters outside the U.S. embassy.
Y'all, I done got myself confused while I'm trying to talk to y'all in this chat. This video is about the U.S. Embassy over in Russia. No, I'm sorry, over in, I think it's Norway. Yeah, in Norway, they got potentially hit. Well, it got hit. But they're saying that it could have been an act of terrorism. Okay, so that's what we are looking at right here.
A Norwegian police security service official says that the overall threat against Israeli, Jewish, and American targets continues to be elevated. The threat level remains at level 3 out of 5, which is moderate. Police say that they currently have no suspects, but Oslo police told Norwegian media outlet Dagbladet that they have video footage of a person placing the explosives outside the embassy, but their sources say the person had covered their face, making it difficult to identify any facial features. The U.S. State Department says that they're aware of the incident incident. They are investigating, and they're also thanking Norwegian authorities for supporting the investigation there. Natasha?
Yeah, Mills Hayes with that.
Now you're gonna see the damage is kind of close up in this video. I think they only hit like the front door, if I'm not mistaken, but you can see it a little bit more clear on this video. And with daylight, you can definitely see it better. But nobody was hurt, to my understanding. Y'all see that? All right. So y'all, what I thought was interesting, we got Eli talking about Norwegians giving America a little tap, laugh out loud. Yeah, they tapped that door, didn't it? That's for sure. Well, somebody did. But yeah, so Trump was at some type of ceremony, and a reporter asked him about Russia. And what's interesting to me is that I think if you were here last week, you may have heard me mention how he was doing like I think a ceremony for the MLS team, and these men were like standing behind him while Trump was talking about what was going on with Operation Epic Fury at this like award ceremony. Because someone asked me in the chat, they said, well, why are they standing behind him? It was an actual award ceremony. So now that he's in a different setting, someone asked him as part of the questions for whatever event it was, I don't know, they asked him about Russia and Russia possibly helping, Iran. So he told the man that was a stupid question and that he shouldn't be asking about that at this point in time. Okay. So let me go ahead and show you guys that real fast, and then we're going to get back to the comments.
It sounds like the Russians are helping Iran target and attack Americans now.
That's an easy problem compared to what we're doing here. I mean, but can I be honest? It's just, I have a lot of respect for you. You've always been very nice to me. What a stupid question that is to be asking at this time. We're talking about something else. Can we keep this maybe a little bit? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, he told him that was a stupid question. Can we keep this? Yeah, go ahead, please. Like he ain't want to talk about it. So basically, when he want to talk about it, that is when we're gonna talk about it. Not anytime before. Okay. So that's how that went. I thought that was hilarious when he sat there and told that man that. But so yes, Eli was telling me I should read the book, Hegseth's book, from my own opinion. And he was saying he said it was bad structure. No, I figured out what you was talking about. Let me cut this thing off real fast, y'all. Uh-oh. I'm trying to do too much. Okay, I'm trying to remove this ticker that's going. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I may try and read the book. We'll see. I gotta see a Barnes and Noble guide. I'm sure they do, and see how many pages it is. Then we have Eli saying, is anyone claiming responsibility for the attack? I don't think so. I have not heard that they were. I haven't heard anything about that. When you talk about the one at the embassy in Norway, I have not seen as of yet that anybody has claimed that, oh, I did this. Then Deborah says, sounds like the same type of backpack bomb that blew up in the New York race years ago. Oh, okay. Interesting. I know at 4-6 MD it's probably gone, but you have a good night. But yes, y'all, now I have the video where we talk a little bit more about the soldiers that have fallen, the first 6 from this current operation. So let's get into it.
It has now been more than 24 hours since we learned the names of the 2 remaining U.S. soldiers killed in Sunday's attack in Kuwait. We learned the names of 4 soldiers Tuesday, and since that time, KCCI has worked to learn more about each of the soldiers and their legacies. You see their pictures on your screen right now. 45-year-old Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 35-year-old Captain Cody Cork, 54-year-old Chief Warrant Officer 3 Robert Marzan, and 39-year-old Sergeant First Class Nicola Moore, 42-year-old Sergeant First Class Noah Tegens, and 20-year-old Sergeant Declan Cody.
20 years
Soldiers
old.
were all assigned to the Army Reserve 103rd Expeditionary Sustainment Command. The headquarters is at Fort Des Moines on the city's south side. That's where we find KCCI's Abigail Curtin live this evening. Abigail, people from all walks of life are feeling this loss.
Absolutely. From Iowa and beyond, from cybersecurity experts to soldiers, even Eagle Scouts are feeling the grief and loss that is impacting all of the communities that knew these soldiers. We spoke with a few of them to learn what the soldiers' lasting legacies will be here at home.
We know them as soldiers, men and women brave enough to give their lives for their countries, but their identities extend far beyond their service, like Major Jeffrey O'Brien of Waukee.
He's going to be remembered as a family guy.
While Brandon Potter, CTO of cybersecurity company ProCircular, only worked with him for about a year, his legacy of service and his love for his family lives on.
90% of our conversations, if not 100% of our conversations, involve discussions about family. His kids, his wife, what they were planning to do this weekend.
The same goes for Sergeant Declan Cody.
He loved everything. He always had a smile on his face.
Cody accomplished a lot in his short 20 years, including becoming an Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Boy Scouts. He helped make 12 Adirondack chairs for an organization that helps homeless children in Iowa, a fierce sense of selflessness that he carried into his service.
Whether it was at a scout meeting, leading a younger group of kids, to at a camp out, needing something cooked, or again, taking a younger group of kids on a hike or whatever, I could rely on Declan to do that type of stuff, as well as my own son.
Iowa veterans are also feeling the loss. Luke Dickens, who served in the 103rd Command in the 90s and again in 2006, says regardless of whether the deceased were native Iowans, all of the soldiers spent significant time in central Iowa.
These people, if they didn't live in Iowa, they spent a lot of time here, and their command was out of Iowa, and the roots in Iowa go back.
Which is why he hopes Iowa will recognize their contributions.
It hurts to know that we lost 6 soldiers from a unit in Des Moines, Iowa, and I hope they get the recognition that they deserve.
And honor them for what they were, homegrown heroes.
There were several other soldiers serving in Kuwait as part of the 103rd Command that were injured. However, as of today, all 9 of them are in Germany receiving medical care. In Des Moines, Abigail Curtin, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
The remains of the fallen soldiers will return to the U.S. this weekend. The dignified transfer will happen Saturday at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. That announcement was made by Iowa 3rd District Congressman Zach Nunn. He says he will be there. President Trump and Governor Reynolds also plan to attend. And KCCI plans to live stream the dignified transfer on our website, kcci.com.
Okay, let's get into the actual dignified transfer.
Good afternoon. I'm Elaine Quijano. We want to take you to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, where the bodies of 6 U.S. service members killed in the opening days of the war against Iran have arrived back on American soil. This process is known as a dignified transfer. The bodies of all 6 service members will be taken to the official military morgue at the Air Force Base before being returned to their families. All 6 were reservists assigned to the 103rd Sustainment Command. That unit provides food, fuel, water, and ammunition, transport equipment, and supplies. The service members were killed in a drone strike in Kuwait exactly 1 week ago today, just hours after U.S. and Israeli troops began bombing targets in Iran. Let's go ahead and watch.
Yeah, just so sad. My goodness. The youngest one being 20 years old. Life just started. But y'all, like Trump said last week, He said, you know, these are the first, but there will probably be more. And so, yeah, long as this operation continues, there's going to be more opportunity for more, you know, casualties. And as you guys know, they've already announced the seventh person has died. They announced that recently. And they got what, 8 or 9 sitting in Germany being treated. So hopefully they're gonna make it to come back. And I hope they make it to come back, you know, in good condition. I'll say it that way. But yeah, I've never actually looked at identified transfer, but this is what they do apparently. Honor the fallen. And I want to say that it was maybe a 45-minute ceremony, if you will. So yeah.
As we watch this solemn moment, let's bring in from Washington, CBS News National Security Coordinating Producer James Laporta, who served as a sergeant in the Marine Corps. James, we see the commander-in-chief there. We see the First Lady there. Talk to us about the significance of the dignified transfer for members of the military.
Absolutely. The dignified transfer essentially showcases the best of us in terms of how the U.S. military brings our fallen service members home. There's a phenomenal movie from 2009 called Taking Chance, starring actor Kevin Bacon. That movie it's incredibly apolitical and is really details the entire process from the time a service member is killed in combat all the way till their final burial place, and really showcases the work that the incredible individuals do at Dover Air Force Base. That movie, actually, which came out in 2009, so largely the dignified transfer was not covered by the media. Media were restricted from covering these events going back to the early 90s. Until that movie that came out in 2009, then Secretary of Defense Robert Gates wrote in his memoirs that movie had a profound impact on him, and in 2009 he lifted media restrictions on covering the dignified transfer. There is a couple caveats when covering the dignified transfer. Really, it's the family's discretion on whether or not the media gets to cover these.
Good.
And second, typically the dignified transfer is, for service members who have died in the line of duty in terms of participating in a combat operation or current operations. So, but the dignified transfer, they're not considered formal ceremonies in the traditional sense. So a formal ceremony would be like a Medal of Honor ceremony, or when the president reviews a large company or a battalion of troops. We refer to these as solemn transfers. And so what this is doing is it's bringing these fallen service members back from combat operations, back from where they were operating, and then bringing them into mortuary affairs, where these incredible people will start to meticulously prepare them for their final burial. So that is everything from getting their uniforms to look perfect, to mounting their medals, to getting their rank correct in order to transfer them to their families and finally to their final resting place.
And James, I want to make note that in addition, of course, to the president and the first lady, we see Vice President J.D. Vance there as well. We are told by the White House that the second lady is in attendance, and the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, is also among the dignitaries who have gathered. We see the president there standing at attention and saluting as these transfer cases carrying the remains of these service members go by. Family members, James, are also in attendance here as well. Tell us a little bit about what then the process is for these bereaved families who have sacrificed so much.
Absolutely. So So first, let's start with the salute. There's actually no requirement that a president or anyone else who is a civilian in a civilian capacity return a salute to service members. It's actually believed that President Ronald Reagan actually started that tradition because he felt, as commander-in-chief, he felt it was appropriate to returning a salute in the military context is showing respect from one rank to another rank. And so President Ronald Reagan actually started that tradition, and all presidents since then have really carried on that tradition of not only returning the salute to service members, but saluting the fallen. The family members do come to these dignified transfers. They're not required to, which is one of the reasons why they don't, classify this as a ceremony. But most families do show up. But these families, a casualty assistance officer, or what we call a CACO officer, has been with these families since they were first notified. So typically, Defense Department policy is 24 hours. Within 12 to 24 hours after a service member's death, they want to notify the families. The entire process is built around getting these service members back to their families as quickly as possible.
Okay. So I tell you what, that was very interesting. I did not know that much about this dignified transfer process. Mr. Lou, you were saying it's a heavy movie. Yeah, apparently I forgot what he said, but he was saying there was somebody that was at the White House that saw that movie with Kevin Bacon, and then he decided to change the rules where where you could have media present at the dignified transfer. So it was very impactful from what I'm gathering, right? So Ms. Deborah was saying that everyone on the plane stays seated until the coffins are unloaded. Then the passengers are deplaned. But that's if you're on a regular, commercial aircraft. So understood. So yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. So as you guys know, Reverend Jesse Jackson passed away as well recently. He was over 80. They did his memorial and his service and everything this past weekend. And so we got a little bit of footage from that because apparently Jesse Jackson's son didn't like some of the comments that were being made by former President Obama, Clinton, and I think Biden. And so we'll just see a little bit of that. Let's get into it. Obama up first.
I got to know the Reverend and his family over the years, and as I watched his children follow his example of service, I came to appreciate the conviction that drove him, that he had passed on, the faith that guided him and that he had passed on. And it was a faith that didn't waver, a flame that burned bright, even as his body began to fail. The last time he and I had a chance to visit in person, he was already ailing. It was getting difficult for him to stand, difficult for him to speak. We were in Hyde Park, in a hotel room. I embraced him and figured we'd just have a low-key visit. Maybe he'd need some rest. And he starts coming up with this project and this initiative and issues I needed to look into.
He was still about the mission.
Here's some commentary that he would suggest, and some phrasing that he thought might work, and maybe we might co-write an article. And
he still had his faculties about him. That man still wanted to work.
And listening to him, I couldn't help smiling. Because it took me back. And I started reminiscing with him about those Saturday mornings at Push and the breakfast that he'd host, away from the full meeting. And I didn't get a chance to go to that until I was a state senator, and probably Meeks invited me. So I was like, I was tagging along with Meeks, and he'd pull out a piece of paper, he'd scribbled some stuff, and he'd start passing out assignments, and pulling together working groups and asking for updates on the latest campaign. And I'll admit, let's face it, those sessions could run a little long and did not always follow Robert's Rules of Order. But when Jesse called your name and acknowledged you in that room, especially if you were young, especially if you were just coming up, especially if you weren't sure you could pull off what you thought you might be able to do, especially when you needed help. When he did that, you stood up a little straight. You knew you'd been seen by this giant. He'd laid hands on you and let you know you had a contribution to make.
Okay.
And so that day, I told him how much that meant to me and how much it meant to so many lives that he impacted. And I told him thank you, because I'd always be grateful for that legacy of hope. I know I've gone long. It was going to be much shorter until Isaiah spoke. I figure if a Detroit Piston can take up that much time, it was beautiful, and I mean that.
He's an excellent orator.
Love me some Isaiah.
Thank you. I think that clock is broken. I'll try to keep this under 2 minutes. I knew Jesse.
Okay, Biden.
We're both young. I'm only 83. There's a, I'll tell you laughing at that's 40 times 2 plus.
Okay.
But all kidding aside, we came up through the same time. I knew Jesse, and history remembers him. I knew him was determined and tenacious. I knew him was underrated, undeterred, and unafraid. Not a joke. And more than most, Jesse was dedicated with every fiber in his being to redeeming the soul of America. The soul of America. You know, Jesse came up and I came up together as leaders in the Democratic Party. We had very different backgrounds, and in some cases even different views, but never on race. Okay. Sometimes we went toe-to-toe. We disagreed on some issues. But that's what I actually admired most about Jesse, his passion. He was passionate. His passion, the courage of his convictions. And you know, his courage inspired a hell of a lot of us, even though we were the same age. You know, with his captivating presence, his stirring words, he would be easy for history to mistake Jesse for a firebrand. I think they'd get it wrong. Jesse certainly created his fair share of good trouble.
Okay.
But through decades of service, Jesse's abiding message was one of unity. That's what he talked about. Through decades of service, Jesse's abiding message of unity moved people in the right direction. Above all, he always sought common ground.
Okay. So I think they said pretty nice things about Jesse Jackson. I mean, they knew him from, you know, his civil rights, political avenues, and they appeared to have a relationship and rapport with him. Now, his son felt like they were trying to politicize I guess, his memorial. Now, I didn't play the whole speeches. I want to say Obama speech may have been like 18 minutes. I wasn't going to do that to y'all. But his son had something to say, and let's hear what he had to say. Get into this.
For several hours of 3 United States presidents who do not know Jesse Jackson.
Really?
He maintained a tense relationship with the political order, not because the presidents were white or black, but the demands of our message, the demands of speaking for the least of these, those who were disinherited, the damned, the dispossessed, the disrespected, demanded not Democratic or Republican solutions, but demanded a consistent, prophetic voice that at no point in time ever sold us out as a people. And it speaks volumes about who the Reverend Jesse Jackson was. Our message has already been delivered today. I can see it all over my mother's face. Rise, Jesse, rise. Give Jonathan Jackson another great round of applause for delivering our family message to the world. Let's hear it for the congressman. There'll be no different message that leaves this service than the one that Jonathan Jackson has blessed us with.
So y'all, what y'all think about that? I feel like you was throwing a little shade at the presidents. And I mean, saying it, well, they don't know him. What do you mean they don't know him? Like, from what they said, it appeared that they had a relationship and proximity to him. I'm confused as to exactly what the challenge was, because we all know that Jesse Jackson stood on business, civil rights business, and I cannot see a president or anyone going there speaking on his behalf at a eulogy and not talking about this man's life's work, if you will, and what he stood for and what he, and giving what they think his perception would be, for lack of a better phrase. So I'm just confused as to why he had to go there and say, well, this is what the family message is. Babe, let me tell you something. If I had to put on a funeral, if I'm going to have people speak at the funeral, and number one, I'm not big on folks speaking at nothing that I have. Like, just attend. I don't need you saying nothing. You know how you go to weddings and folks want to get the microphone and talk? I don't want none of that. Okay? You come, you watch, you eat, dance, and leave. No, none of these conversations. But my thing is, I would have been like, okay, I want you to eulogize my father, but I don't want you to talk about what's going on, in the world today. Which I don't know how you wouldn't do that at Jesse Jackson, the Jackson Lewis Jackson funeral. How would you not talk about that? But I'm not him. Everybody grieved differently. And maybe he didn't know his father, because did he not know that his dad is like a civil rights icon? And from what you guys are saying in the chat here, y'all saying that he was a Democrat. Okay. Well, I ain't give it one vote, but that's all I need was one vote. All right. And so Mr. Lou said, yes, that was a little shade. Okay. I did do another poll where I said, do you think Trump should choose their next supreme leader? Some of y'all said yes, like 67%, and then 30% said no. Okay. That's what y'all said. And the other poll was, do you think Kristi Noem's video was worth $220 million? 9% said yes, 91% said no. Okay. Understood. Now, Lou said he was a civil rights activist, which is highly political, and he ran for president in '88. And he gave us this sign. Exactly. So yeah, I think that man was, I don't know what was going on with his son, but we're gonna let him grieve his father in the way that he chooses to do. And I'm sure that those presidents, um, they going to sleep good tonight. So there you have that. So next up, we're gonna talk about Jasmine Crockett for a hot second. As you guys know, Jasmine, or you should know, Jasmine Crockett had ran for the Democratic ticket for Senate down there in Texas, and she lost. Okay, so we're going to see her video where she talks about the night of the election, and she was saying that there were issues with like the polls, like the polls were closing early and they weren't going to count all the votes and this, that, and the other. It was a lot. So let's get into it.
If it comes in and I'm losing Dallas County, then we know kind of where this thing is going. So that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do. And so they specifically targeted Dallas County, and I think we all know why. So I want you to enjoy yourselves, but I won't be back tonight because I have no idea of when we're going to get results, and I fully anticipate it won't be until tomorrow. So I love y'all too. Thank you so very much for being here. Love you down. I love you down, Dallas.
Jasmine Crockett speaking live in Dallas right now. We got to that as soon as we realized she was up at the podium there, but you heard the nut of what she said. She said they are not expecting to have results tonight. She said this is what Republicans like to do. They specifically targeted Dallas County. She asked her supporters to stay and enjoy themselves, but she did not expect that there would be election results of any definitive sort tonight, specifically because of what's happening in Dallas. Meanwhile, we're going to go back to Rosa Flores, who is in Dallas County right after this from Ali Velshi, because while Jasmine Crockett was saying that, we actually did get in a bunch of votes.
Well, a lot of votes. We're now up to 59% in the state, and the lead, Tallarico's lead, has narrowed. It's now 51.8 to 46.9, and a lot of that is because we finally have got some votes in from Dallas, and a lot of them. That vote just dumped 61%. We went from 0 all night to 61%. Jasmine Crockett has got a lead there. It's 60 to 38. It's significant, but this is early vote. This is not day of vote. Obviously, the big issue right now is what that day of vote is going to be. So we're sort of stuck in a lot of places at the 60-ish point. There's some smaller counties that were easy to count, and the numbers are much higher. But generally speaking, in major centers, we're in this area. Look at Travis County, which is Austin. This is 60%. This is Tallarico's home. He's at 76 to Jasmine Crockett's 23. Let's go to Houston, where Jasmine Crockett was expected to do very well with 2/3 of the vote in. Her lead is narrowing, 53.5 to 45 for Tallarico. In Fort Bend, 3/4 of the vote, 77% of the vote is in, 60 to 36. So again, this really is anybody's game right now. This is a jump ball. It is unclear what's going on. Clearly, Jasmine Crockett believes this will not conclude tonight, as she just said, and we may be believing the same thing. I want to just quickly jump over to the Senate contest there, the GOP Senate contest. Again, 43% is where John Cornyn, the incumbent, is at. Ken Paxton is trailing with 40%. He's behind a lot of what just happened in Dallas County for reasons that are not clear. Wesley Hunt is staying at 13%. He's been at 13% all night. I just want to go to Dallas County and show you this. This is the Republican Senate contest in Dallas County. Look how far behind Ken Paxton is. He's involved in these shenanigans in Dallas County. His vote and Wesley Hunt's vote do not add up to John Cornyn's vote in Dallas County. I don't know whether that's relevant to why Ken Paxton went to court tonight to shut down the votes of those who were in line after 7 p.m., but it is a place where Ken Paxton is not doing well.
All right, I want to go right back to Dallas County right now. Rosa Flores standing by. Rosa, I very, very rudely interrupted you while you were starting to tell us about your communications with Dallas County. I only did that because we had that live feed to take from Jasmine Crockett. Please start over again. Tell us about your communications with the county. What happened in those communications tonight?
Yeah, so how they explained it to me is because the Texas Supreme Court struck down the lower court ruling, which extended voting for the Democratic primary from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
All those ballots that were cast, Rachel, between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m., those will be, quote, separated and kept. Now, the big question is, will they be counted? And I can tell you from talking to voters who had gone to multiple polling places, trying to find the right polling place, one woman who was in tears earlier today, and a woman that I literally interviewed moments before the polls closed because this Texas Supreme Court ruling came down. They were all worried about their vote counting, and they were all talking about how this was, quote, voter suppression because they were really trying to vote and they just couldn't vote. Like I said before, I'm a data girl, Rachel. And just to give you a sense, as I mentioned earlier, here at about 5:30 p.m. Central Time, 388 people had voted at this polling place. And according to the election judge, again, of the Democratic Party, about 350 had been turned away. That just gives you a sense of how many people were out in Dallas County trying to figure out where to vote and trying to vote. Rachel?
That's just remarkable. That's a remarkable sort of snapshot of what was happening there, Rosa. But just to be clear, what the county told you is that votes cast after a specific time are going to be kept. But they didn't necessarily say they're going to be counted, or it's not clear at this point whether they will be counted. They'll just be somehow preserved and segregated from the vote that came in earlier today.
You're absolutely right. And I followed up with that, Rachel, because I was very curious about what that meant. Does that mean that they keep them just for now? And the individual from the spokesperson from the county didn't go into specifics because, of course, that's a lot of legalese. And she was like, I can't speak for the Democratic Party because this is a challenge that the Democratic Party is putting forth. But she did say that they will be kept. But from talking to all of the voters today, I can tell you that what they were worried about was their vote counting,
Right.
especially because they had gone through, in essence, through all these hoops to try to vote, trying to figure out, okay, wait, where do I vote? Even the website crash, Rachel. So people who were trying to figure out where can I vote, they couldn't even find out where to vote because the website crashed. So there were just so many hurdles that these voters had to go through just to cast their ballot today.
That's
Rosa
crazy.
Flores for us in Dallas County, Texas. Rosa, I know we will be back with you. Keep reporting whatever we can learn about how this is going to be worked out, what's going to be the dispensation of those ballots, how voters if they can be reassured about how this has been administered in Dallas County. It's all really, really important. Thank you. We're grateful for you being there.
So I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I was listening. I'm like, well, they couldn't figure out where to vote. They go online, and they'll tell you where you can vote at. But I didn't know that the site had crashed. You know, I lived in San Antonio for about 10 years off and on, so I'm familiar with that kind of setting. Getting into the Texas places to vote. But yeah, that just sounds insane. Like they were gonna shut down at 9, then end up shutting down at 7. That's crazy. That's why people were confused. So I don't know if that's really why she didn't, win the Democratic primary ticket. But sounds like the Tellerico guy who actually won, didn't have the same level of visibility that Jasmine had. Like, she's been, in Congress, whatever, for a while. She's known for, her bad. What was her phrase? Bad built butch body, Barbie. You remember her? That's the one. She got those phrases, honey. Very intelligent woman, lawyer and everything. But yeah, she did not win. Now, I saw where someone was saying that they felt like Tallarico, although he was a new kid on the block, they said that he ran his campaign to be more like approachable to the constituents, like more relatable to the constituents, right? And they felt that Jasmine's campaign was more about Trump. and not about connecting with the folks who need to vote for you. So I haven't seen a lot of what her campaign stuff was. I'm not in Texas anymore, but that's what their opinion was. But I did not know that Tallarico was new to the game and had just started campaigning maybe a few months out. And then he done sat there and pulled the big one and won the ticket. So this is what she had to say after she, realized that, you know what, I didn't win, but let's keep it going.
Good morning, y'all. I know it's super early.
This went out on her end, y'all, not on what I got going on. It'll come back. It's gonna come back, y'all.
Words can't express how excited you made me as I was out on the trail, working to stretch people's imaginations. It's clear that we still have a lot of work to do, even within our party, about making sure that we invest in kind of just doing the right thing sometimes. It's all good though. No matter what, whether it's Kim Paxton or John Cornyn, anyone would be better. I'm just saying. So again, I just wanted to say thank you specifically to the people of Dallas County. I love you so very much. And I woke up still heartbroken about everything that took place. I've got your emails. We received your phone calls about all of the confusion and the many people that just didn't get to vote. We have to fix this going forward. We should not have people being disenfranchised in 2026, even in Texas, specifically in a Democratic county. It breaks my heart. At the end of the day, we were about to file a lawsuit so that we could keep the lines open. The county party chair got it done before we did. And, the judge did the right thing. Texas Supreme Court stepped in. So I just wanted to say again, thank you. I am back to work. I am proud to serve Texas 30 until January of 2027. And then let me send mad love to my pastor, Pastor Freddie Haynes, who will be the congressman for Texas 30. So God bless y'all.
Okay. Well, shout out to Jasmine. She did, she put up a good race. She didn't win, but she, she put herself out there. And so apparently her pastor is going to be taking over her spot in Congress. Now, I remember they were talking about they were trying to rezone. So I thought that her district was being split up, but I guess not. But yeah, shout out to her pastor for stepping into some new territory. But yes, y'all, we have talked about Kristi Noem and the fallout with her being reassigned and all that good jazz, that $220 million campaign that cost her prestigious position. We got into some things about Operation Epic Fury. We also, pay a little homage to Jesse Jackson with his passing. And we gave, Jasmine Crockett a little shine time and everything. And that's all that I have for today. So guess what, y'all? I'll be back on Wednesday. If you haven't done so, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and support the channel. It's free. I'll be back Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Check me out. You all have a great night, and I'll see you Wednesday. Bye.